I guess I was about 16 or 17, and my father would have a game in the house every so often with some of his friends. And I would just watch them, see what they were doing, and pester him to take me to the bridge club, which he eventually did, because I had always grew up with cards. All the grandparents played pinochle all the time. We played lots of pinochle, and I was intrigued by this bridge stuff. I watched him, and finally, when I was in high school, towards the end, he says, "All right, we'll go to the bridge club," and I started playing. New York City was the best place to play bridge. I mean, we had a few years before me were a lot of really talented players. Solidar, Sontag, Weichsel, Harold Lilly, who played with me, Mike Berkowitz, Stevie Altman, Mike Becker, Ronnie Rubin. I'm probably missing a million of them. Matt Granovetter, Joel Stewart, all the precision teams. They all played. They were all young, and they were all good. And it turned out that the best game in New York City was at the Mayfair, I believe. It was run by Al Roth. And every Wednesday night they had something called the Imp game, or a match point game, and it was handicapped. But you'd go and you'd pay some money, and there was a pool, and you'd play all the wonderful. Roth would be playing, and Trent would be playing, and Stamen would be with Mitchell, and Edgar Kaplan would occasionally be playing, and it was just beyond belief. And of course, Bob and I would come, and we'd usually finish last, but they'd help us because it was handicapped, and we always had the biggest handicap. And it's something good for your game when you sit there and you're a little nervous and you sit down and play against Ira Rubin, for instance, and he glowers at you, and you say, "What am I doing here? Why I chose to come here to do this?" But it helps. You get better. The one you always wanted was Roth. He was the god. But you know, Roth being Roth, I mean, he'd look at something you did and he'd say, "You're a child. You're children. You're all children. You don't know how to play. You're a child." That's all he said. I mean, we had all the great players. I think Roth only respected a few of them. Trent, of course, his partner, or Barbara at times. And I think the one of the young people he thought was the best was John Solidar. But he would always say, "Oh, you're a child, you're a child. You can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. What are you doing? Why don't you just stop playing?" I mean, but nevertheless, he would tell you things, and if you listened to him, you'd get a lot better. Because Roth, it was his club, and he was free with his advice. The other ones, I mean, obviously they would tell you, but the one I like to watch was Vic Mitchell, because he was very natural. Very natural. He would sit there. He once played a hand. I was playing. I really didn't even know him at the time. I was playing in one of my first regionals, and he was playing. And he doesn't look like an imposing figure or anything. And he sits there, and he plays the hand out in 2.2 milliseconds. 13 tricks are gone. He's in 4 spades, making 5. And I said, "Gee, that looked easy." And I look on the recap, and I've got a 0. Everyone barely made 4, nobody made 5. And I wrote down the hand. He did some amazing things in 2.2 seconds. Very natural player. I played with this guy, Bob Sartorius, for a while, and then Harold Lilly was one of the up-and-coming young, a couple of years older than me, found me and said, "I am going to start playing on teams with you because I think you're good." Because we had played against him in a local New York double knockout. And Bob and I played great. We lost because our teammates played terribly. But he and his partner said, "We want to play with you." So they took us to a regional up in Grossingers, Catskill Mountains. And we had never won a regional. We nothing. I started playing with Harold because Mike Berkowitz didn't want to play. And then in the mid-70s, all of a sudden I was getting okay. And John Solidar came up to me one day and said, "David, I have a proposition for you. You could play with me and George Rapay, who's a legend, and our teammates are going to be Mike Lawrence and Mark Blumenthal." These were gods. I died and gone to bridge heaven. we'll play in the Vanderbilt, and we'll play as five. You'll play with some with me, and I'll play all the time with George. And this was before professional bridge or anything. I wasn't getting paid. I wasn't even getting taken to dinner. But I was thrilled beyond belief, and I jumped at this, and they said, okay. And John and I did a little work, but not much. In those days, you didn't do that kind of stuff. And then the night before the event started, there's a team meeting, okay? And they say, we're thinking of adding a sixth. What do I know? Do whatever you want. I'm so happy to be here playing with these people. And they said, all right. And they figure out that they've added a sixth to play with me. I have a new partner. It's Jim Jacoby. I said, you're going to let me play with Jim Jacoby? I mean, this was such an honor and a thrill. I said, I'm in. And they said, people said, well, he does some funny I said, it's okay. It is such a thrill for me to be playing with him. I'm going to love it. Jim was a great partner. We beat a lot of good teams, and we made it to the semis and then the finals. And in the semis, I got my first big experience of real-time shock and pain, because I sat down, and there was no Viewgraph in this. There's no BBO. You sit there in a room, and you're playing some great superstars, and who should sit down right over here, right next to me, with a pad and a pencil, is Edgar Kaplan, writing for the Bridge World. And I said, this is not good. This is not good. But we played, and we won the semis, and then we lost in the finals, I think, to Katz and Cohn, and Dr. George, Bates and Mohan. And it was quite an experience. Oh, I was really nervous. But, you know, it's like everything else. Once you do it a few times, you get less nervous. Although, I still get like butterflies when I go in to play a tight fourth quarter against Mexroth and Rodwell or something. You know, it's going to be a battle, but it's good. It's a good kind of thing. In the 80s, I always thought that in the 80s and the 90s was the best pair to me was Mark Lair and Mike Purcell. They always, you knew when you were playing them, not only were they great, but they could take you into the gutter and beat you up. Just they make you do the wrong things. I thought they were the nuts, really good. Of course, Mexroth and Rodwell, Larry and I probably played more boards against them than anybody else. And it's always a fight. And we always used to have the philosophy that we're going to play 16 boards against them, and we're going to look awful stupid on one of them. They're going to do something to make us just look stupid. And we just got to try to hold that to one. Okay, now Mexroth and I played together. In the late 70s, we were on a Kathy Way precision team. It was Kathy and Ron Anderson and Judy Raid and me and Mick. And we were playing five-handed in a Vanderbilt. I believe it was in Norfolk. And we were doing very well. And we actually lost in the finals. That happened. But I enjoyed playing with Mexroth, and I enjoyed the whole team. I played some with Mac, I played with Ron, I played with everybody. We just switched around, whoever felt like playing. And we had some great wins. And after that tournament, we have another meeting. We always have meetings. Everybody likes to have meetings. And Mac goes to us and says, I think it would be better if you played 6 with 3-set partnerships, you know. And I said, and Ron, who ran everything, said, okay, it's possible, but of course, I don't know if that meant he didn't want to pay the money or this or that. He said, we'll consider it. Who do you have in mind for a 6th? And Jeff Mexroth says, well, I think I'm going to do well. I want to play with this kid, Rodwell. And Ron immediately says, not good enough. And that's how we lost Mexroth and Rodwell. I can't tell you how many people come up to me and say, oh, I still remember the greatest hand I ever had, 1978. I doubled you in this, and you went for 1100, or you went down in a slam, or this or that. And I'm looking at them like, who are these people? But I said, oh yeah, I remember that hand. I mean, there must be 1,000 people out there who've had their best hands of their lives against me. I don't know even what I'm sitting here for. I mean, I don't know where I've had a good result. These people all say, oh yeah, don't you remember? You did this, and then I got you by doing this. Oh, I dropped your singleton king, and this and that. Oh, yeah, oh, I remember like it was yesterday. Well, Larry would say that I'm an arch conservative. He was always interested in what my style was. He didn't really so much care as to what we were playing, but he wanted to know what to expect from me, because that's a very important thing in your partnership. When I opened first seat 3 spades, both vulnerable, he wanted to know if I could have like Jack 10 7th of spades and Jack 10 4th of clubs, because that's what he could have, or Marty. Or whether I have a hand that if you have a couple aces, I might make game. So he considers me an arch conservative. He tells everybody once he was playing in the finals of the blue ribbon pairs with me, and he had the all-time death hand. He had something like queen of spades, queen of diamonds, queen of clubs, and some other crap. No aces, no kings, and no hearts. Okay? And they opened a club, and after him, he passed, they opened the club, and now I bid 3 hearts. Okay, and we were vulnerable. And he had all these queens and no hearts. So he had the perfect hand that he knew as soon as I bid that we were going for some huge number. Okay? So I bid 3 hearts, and I went pass, pass, double. Pass, 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 just as expected. And the hearts split. The guy had queen 10 4th of hearts over me, and they had all the aces and all the kings. And I went for 800 against, they could make 430 or something. And Larry looked at the kibitzer and said, that's a top. Because if David bid 3 hearts, everyone in the room is bidding 4. When Larry and I won all these pair events and everything, he always said that he thought our biggest advantage was that everybody sort of wanted us to win, because they liked us. Okay? Of course, it didn't hurt that when you'd play the last round of a pair event and everybody knew that you were winning or getting close, you would be sitting there, and these poor other players would climb in through 25 kibitzers, standing up in like a ring, and they'd be petrified. And they'd want you to win, and they wanted to get out of there. So we always seemed to have great finishes, because they were scared, we were fine, and so it's nice to be liked. I'd like to be remembered as being a nice opponent. I can be very caustic and sarcastic, which is sometimes not endearing, but it's what I am.